Never thought I'd be that woman, you know? The one who trades a lifetime of love for a shiny, new thrill. But here I am, sitting in the ashes of a 25-year marriage, wondering how the hell I got here. It all started at some ritzy charity gala I'd been to 100 times before. Only, this time, he was there. Mark, a businessman with a smile that could, and did, sell ice to Eskimos. He had this way about him, like he knew exactly what you wanted to hear. And man, did I listen. At first, it was just harmless flirting. A dance here, a compliment there. But then came the gifts. Jewelry that cost more than my car. Weekends away in places I'd only seen in magazines. He promised me the world, and I lapped it up like a cat with cream. I told myself it was just a bit of fun. My husband, Tom, and I had our routines, sure, but the passion? Felt like it had packed its bags and left years ago. Mark made me feel alive again, desired. So, I let myself fall, thinking I could handle it, control it. Tom found out, not because I slipped up, but because he went looking. Hired some private eye to tail me. Can't say I blame him. The signs were all there. The late nights, the unexplained absences. Hell, I'd have suspected me too. The confrontation was brutal. There's no other word for it. Tom, usually so calm and collected, was a hurricane of hurt and anger. How could you? He kept asking, like he expected an answer that would make it all make sense. I tried to explain, to justify it by saying we'd been drifting apart for years, that he never paid attention to me anymore. It sounded hollow even to my own ears. Then came the ultimatum. It's him or me, Tom said, his voice breaking. End it and we try to fix this mess, or you walk away with nothing. Nothing. After 25 years, a home, a life. To be left with nothing. It should have scared me straight, made me see sense. But it didn't. I was too far gone, too wrapped up in the fantasy Mark had sold me. So, I chose Mark. Or, more accurately, I chose the illusion of what life with him could be. I walked away from my husband, my best friend, thinking I was heading towards a brighter future. How wrong I was. Sitting here now, I can't help but replay it all, every choice, every mistake. I traded real love for a mirage of happiness. And for what? A few months of excitement? It's funny, in the most tragic way. I thought I was choosing freedom, but all I did was chain myself to a dream that turned into a nightmare. I wonder if Tom thinks of me, if he hates me or just pities me. I guess it doesn't really matter now. I made my choice, and I've got to live with it. But God, if I could go back, if I could change it all. Who am I kidding? There's no going back. There's just living with the consequences of the choices we make. And I've got a lifetime of those to reckon with. I guess you could say I was swept up in a fantasy, the kind you read about in those glossy magazines but never believe could happen to you. I chose him, the businessman, over my husband of 25 years. I thought I was stepping into a world of endless luxury and love, but what I got was a crash course in reality. The first few months were like something out of a dream. Mark, my businessman, took me places I'd only seen in pictures, showered me with gifts that sparkled brighter than anything I'd ever owned. But as the novelty wore off, so did his attentiveness. The gifts slowed to a trickle, and his demeanor changed. He became more controlling, dictating not just where we went but who I could see, what I could wear. Meanwhile, Tom, my husband, filed for divorce. It wasn't a surprise, but the ferocity of it caught me off guard. He was fighting for everything, leaving nothing off the table. Friends who'd been fixtures in my life for decades turned their backs on me, siding with Tom. Even my family, who I thought would stick by me through thick and thin, began to distance themselves, disapproving of the mess I'd gotten myself into. The divorce was a nightmare. I sat in that cold, impersonal courtroom, listening to my life being dissected by lawyers who cared more about the bottom line than the human heartbreak unfolding. When the gavel came down, the settlement was a slap in the face. Far less than I'd hoped for, leaving me financially and emotionally gutted. Now, dependent on Mark for my very livelihood, I found myself trapped in a gilded cage. His true nature began to show through the cracks of his polished exterior. I stumbled upon evidence of his involvement in illegal activities, adding a layer of fear to my already mounting regrets. One night, as I lay awake in the bed we shared, the enormity of my situation hit me. I'd left a man who loved me for a fantasy that turned into a nightmare. I was isolated, financially ruined, and tied to a man who was not only controlling but dangerous. The realization was like a punch to the gut. How had I let myself be blinded by the allure of money and excitement? I thought back to the moments with Tom, the quiet mornings, the shared laughter. All of it traded for what? A few months of excitement and a lifetime of regret? As the days passed, my situation grew more desperate. Mark's demands increased, and with each passing day, I felt more like a prisoner than a partner. The luxuries that had once seemed so enticing now felt like chains, binding me to a man I no longer recognized or respected. I realized too late that happiness couldn't be bought, that the love and stability I'd had with Tom were worth more than any material possession. But there was no going back. I'd made my choice, and now I had to live with it. So here I am, a cautionary tale, a woman who chased a dream only to find herself living a nightmare. If there's a moral to my story, it's that the grass isn't always greener, and sometimes the price of chasing a fantasy is losing everything that truly matters. In a whirlwind, my life went from the heights of luxury to the depths of despair, all thanks to choices I thought I had control over. The irony? I ended up losing everything I thought I wanted, and everything I actually needed. I remember the day I tried to reach out to Tom, my husband, or well, ex-husband now. Desperation has a funny way of erasing pride, so I dialed his number, rehearsing apologies that felt hollow. The phone rang, and then, hello? But it wasn't Tom. It was her, the woman who had taken my place. Tom's moved on, she said, not unkindly, before the line went dead. That was it. No second chances, no tearful reunions. Just the cold, hard reality that I was alone. Mark, the businessman I'd left everything for, showed his true colors soon after. The charm and gifts were just a facade for a much darker world. When I stumbled upon evidence of his illegal activities, I thought of blowing the whistle. But Mark, ever the predator, sensed my intentions. You breathe a word of this, and I'll make sure you regret it, he threatened, his voice cold. I believed him. Fear, it turns out, is a powerful silencer. Then came the scandal. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it's going to be bad, but you can't look away. Mark's illegal dealings hit the headlines, and my name was dragged through the mud right alongside his. I went from being a respected member of the community to the subject of scorn and ridicule overnight. Friends, or those I thought were friends, turned their backs. I was toxic, a pariah. The news of Tom's remarriage was a punch to the gut. Seeing pictures of them, happy and in love, was more than I could bear. He had moved on, found happiness that we once shared, while I was stuck in a nightmare of my own making. The realization that I was the architect of my own misery was a bitter pill to swallow. Financial ruin was the final blow. With Mark's assets seized and my own finances tied up in the scandal, I was left with nothing. No money, no friends, no dignity. The luxurious life I had once led was a distant memory, replaced by the stark reality of my situation. Looking back, I see where I went wrong. I traded a life of genuine contentment for a mirage of happiness. I chose greed over love, and in doing so, I lost both. The price of my choices was higher than I could have ever imagined, leaving me with scars too deep to heal. As I sit here, reflecting on the wreckage of my life, I can't help but wonder if there was ever a moment when I could have turned back, made different choices. But regret, much like the decisions that led me here, offers no solace, only reminders of what was lost. In a twist of fate that felt more like a punch to the gut, I found myself sitting across from a man I barely recognized. He was someone from my past, a shadow that I never thought would re-emerge. And there I was, desperate enough to consider making a deal with what might as well have been the devil himself. Think of it as mutual assistance, he said, his voice smooth like silk but with an edge that suggested danger. I had hit rock bottom, my name dragged through the mud alongside a man I thought I could trust. My reputation, my dignity, all gone. Selling my story seemed like the last resort, but even the media turned their backs on me. No one wanted to hear the tales of a fallen socialite. His offer was tempting, a way out of financial ruin, but at what cost? My moral compass, already spinning out of control, now pointed towards uncharted territories of deceit and manipulation. And what do you get out of this? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Let's just say, I have my reasons. You're not in a position to be choosy, he replied, a smirk playing on his lips. The dilemma tore at me. Accept his help and dive deeper into the abyss of moral ambiguity, or face a future uncertain and impoverished. My survival instincts kicked in. I'll do it, I said, sealing my fate with words that tasted like poison. The plan was complex, involving layers of deceit I couldn't have imagined. With each step, I felt myself sinking deeper into a world I no longer recognized, controlled by strings pulled by this mysterious figure. I was a pawn in a larger game, a fact I only fully understood when it was too late. The betrayal came swiftly, a rug pulled from under my feet at a moment when I was most vulnerable. The man I thought was my ally revealed his true intentions, leaving me exposed and alone in a scheme far beyond my comprehension. "Did you really think I was helping you out of the goodness of my heart?" He chuckled as the realization dawned on me. "You were just a means to an end, nothing more." The world I knew, the life I had led, it all seemed like a distant memory. I was entangled in a web of lies, with no clear way out. The betrayal stung, not just because of the deception, but because I had allowed myself to be fooled. I had chosen this path, step by desperate step, and now I had to live with the consequences. As I sat there, the magnitude of my choices crashing down around me, I couldn't help but wonder how different things might have been if I had made just one choice differently. But regret is a cruel companion, offering no solace, only reminders of what could have been. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. In a city where nobody knew my name, I thought I'd find a fresh start. Turns out, starting over isn't as simple as packing a suitcase and buying a one-way ticket to somewhere else. Especially not when you're me, dragging a past heavy enough to sink any chance of anonymity. I tried, though. God knows I tried. I hit the pavement every day, resumes in hand, a rehearsed smile plastered on my face. But each job interview ended the same way. They'd glance at my resume, then at me, their expressions shifting from professional interest to something colder, more distant. It wasn't just the lack of recent job experience that turned them off, it was me. My name had become toxic, synonymous with scandal and betrayal. The media had made sure of that. It was in one of those moments of rejection that the weight of my isolation truly hit me. There was no one left. Friends, family, even acquaintances from my previous life, had all distanced themselves. My choices had not only destroyed my marriage but had razed every bridge I'd ever built. Desperate and alone, I found myself wandering the darker, grittier parts of the city. Places I would have never dared to explore before. It was there, in the shadows, that I met Alex. He seemed to understand the kind of despair that eats away at you, the kind that comes from having nothing left to lose. He offered me a way to make money, no questions asked. I knew it wasn't going to be legal, but by then, legality seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford. The work was risky, running packages from one anonymous hand to another, never knowing what I was carrying. The fear of getting caught was constant, but so was the fear of not being able to eat or pay rent. I convinced myself I had no other choice. This was survival, and I was no longer in a position to be choosy about how I did it. But survival comes at a cost. The deeper I got into this underworld, the more I realized how much of myself I was losing. I'd become a ghost, flitting from one shady deal to the next, my moral compass so skewed I hardly recognized myself. In a moment of clarity, I decided to reach out to Tom, my ex-husband. Maybe it was foolish hope or just sheer desperation, but I thought if anyone could pull me back from the edge, it would be him. So, I called him, my heart hammering in my chest as I heard his voice for the first time in months. "Tom, it's me," I started, the words catching in my throat. I'm in trouble. I need help." There was a pause, and for a brief, wild moment, I thought I heard a softening in his tone. But then he spoke, and the finality in his voice shattered any illusions I had left. "I'm sorry, but you're no longer my problem. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. Goodbye." The line went dead, and with it, any hope I had of salvaging something from the wreckage of my life. So here I am, in a city that doesn't know my name but knows my shame, caught in a web of my own making. The realization that I have no one left, that I've alienated everyone who once cared, is a bitter pill to swallow. But it's not just the isolation or the fear that keeps me up at night. It's the knowledge that I did this to myself, That every choice I made led me here, to this moment of despair. And as I stand on the precipice, looking down into the abyss that my life has become, I can't help but wonder if there's any way back from this. If there's any redemption for someone like me, or if this is just the beginning of a descent into a darkness from which there's no return. I guess you could say my life took a nosedive from high society to society's pariah, faster than you can flip a page. Who would have thought that my desperate attempts to keep afloat would land me in handcuffs? Certainly not me, but here I am, recounting the tale from a cell that's seen better days. It started with what I thought were harmless little schemes, just enough to maintain a semblance of the lifestyle I was accustomed to. Only, there's nothing little about fraud and theft once you're caught. The courtroom was packed the day of my trial, buzzing with the kind of energy you'd expect at a scandalous play, not a legal proceeding. But then again, my fall from grace was nothing short of theatrical. How do you plead? That question echoed in the silent courtroom, bouncing off the walls, and for a moment, I wondered what would happen if I said, not guilty. But who was I kidding? The evidence was as clear as day, and my guilt was written all over it. Guilty, I murmured, sealing my fate. The sentence was harsh, a reflection of the judge's desire to make an example out of me. To show that no one is above the law, he said, pounding his gavel with finality. And just like that, my fate was sealed. The clinking of handcuffs felt like the closing of a book that detailed the high life, now ending in a chapter I never envisioned. Prison life is a far cry from the cocktail parties and charity galas. It's gritty, real, and unforgiving. Yet, in the solitude of my cell, I found something unexpected: time. Time to reflect on where it all went wrong, not with remorse, but with a critical eye. Survival in here doesn't allow for self-pity. It's about keeping your head down and staying out of trouble, a mantra I repeat daily. But prison walls can't keep the world out entirely. News of my husband's book reached me through the grapevine, a tell-all that laid our private lives bare for public consumption. It became an instant bestseller, a literary sensation that painted me as the villain in our shared story. Public opinion, already skewed against me, turned downright hostile. I was vilified, a cautionary tale of greed and betrayal. The irony of it all is not lost on me. Once, I was the one writing the narrative of my life, dictating each move with confidence. Now, I'm a mere character in someone else's plot, my actions and fate dictated by past mistakes and public scrutiny. As I sit in this cell, I can't help but reflect on the twisted path that led me here. The crimes and their consequences, the trial and its unforgiving outcome, the stark reality of prison life. All of it a far cry from the dreams I once harbored. The book, with its scathing portrayal, has cemented my legacy, not as a woman of grace and poise, but as a pariah, an outcast. Yet, in the midst of this storm, I've found a resilience I never knew I had. Survival has become my new modus operandi, a way to navigate the treacherous waters of prison politics and public opinion. And while the future may seem grim, devoid of hope for redemption, I've learned that life has a way of surprising you. Perhaps, in the end, my story isn't over just yet. From the moment I stepped into the dimly lit cell that would become my world, I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't entirely alone. There was Leah, after all, a fellow inmate who seemed to extend a hand when no one else would. But as I quickly learned, in a place like this, trust is a currency more valuable than gold, and I had been bankrupted yet again. The final betrayal came not with a grand reveal or a dramatic confrontation. It was whispered through the cold, unforgiving bars of my cell. Leah, the one person I thought I could rely on, had been using me from the start. Every secret shared, every moment of vulnerability, had been nothing but a transaction to her. She'd been gathering information, trading my trust for her own gain with the guards and other inmates. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a stark reminder of just how alone I truly was. In that moment, any lingering hope for redemption, for a future beyond these walls, evaporated. I was left to navigate the treacherous waters of prison life utterly alone, my every mistake a lesson learned too late. But prison has a way of keeping you connected to the outside world, even as it isolates you from it. News filtered in, bits and pieces of the life I'd left behind. I heard about the businessman, the architect of my downfall. Convicted and imprisoned, his empire crumbled. A part of me felt vindicated, a hollow sense of justice served. Yet, it brought me no peace, only a deeper sense of the wasteland my life had become. Family, The one beacon I thought might withstand the storm proved to be just another mirage. Letters went unanswered, visits requested were systematically denied. The final rejection came not from their mouths but from their silence. It was clear. I was to serve my sentence in every sense of the word, abandoned and forgotten. Survival in prison demanded a facade I never knew I could muster. The vulnerability, the remnants of the woman I once was, had to be buried beneath a hardened exterior. Every day was a battle, not just against the system or the other inmates, but against myself. Against the part of me that still dared to hope for something more. Then came the book, my husband's final move in a game I didn't even know we were playing. The pages laid bare our life, our secrets, my betrayals. It became a bestseller, a sensation that gripped the public's imagination. And from that book, a documentary was born, casting my downfall in high definition for the world to see. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had become a cautionary tale, a character in a story that was no longer my own. My name, once whispered with respect and envy, was now a byword for betrayal and greed. This chapter of my life, marked by the ultimate betrayal and the complete loss of hope, is a testament to the consequences of my choices. It's a stark reminder that the past is inescapable, and redemption is a luxury not afforded to everyone. In the depths of my despair, I've come to understand the true cost of my actions, paid not in years or tears, but in the complete erasure of the person I once was. As the documentary airs, my story is consumed by millions, a spectacle of downfall and defeat. But beyond the screen, within these walls, I face the daily reality of survival, of a life reduced to the barest essentials of existence. Here, I am a number, a cautionary tale, a lesson in the consequences of greed and the fragility of trust. In the echo of whispers that filled the prison corridors, my story weaves through the air like a cautionary tale spun from greed and betrayal. I've become the subject of scornful discussions, a parable for the high price of avarice. The irony isn't lost on me. I used to be the one discussing others, never imagining I'd become the headline myself. A prison riot breaks out one suffocating, electric night. The chaos unfurls an unexpected chance at freedom, a sliver of light in the relentless darkness. But as cells unlock and guards scatter, I find myself rooted to the spot, resigned. Escape offers a fleeting temptation, yet what awaits me outside? A world that has turned its back, a legacy tarnished beyond redemption. I stay, not out of courage but resignation to the fate I've woven. The dreams I once harbored, of somehow reclaiming the life I'd so recklessly discarded, dissolve into the stark, gray reality of my surroundings. Each morning as I awake to the cold, unyielding walls, the finality of my situation sinks deeper. My aspirations, once as vast as the horizon, now shrink to the hope for mere survival within these confines. Prison life is a relentless reminder of my choices and their aftermath. The daily grind, the constant vigilance against threats, the scarce moments of peace amidst turmoil, all serve as stark reflections of the path I chose. The hardship is unyielding, each day a battle, each night a respite too brief. Then comes a letter, its arrival a rare event in my monotonous existence. It's from the businessman, the catalyst of my downfall. In terse, bitter words, he blames me for everything, the exposure, the loss, his own imprisonment. His words are a knife, twisting in wounds that have never truly healed. Yet, amidst the venom, I find a perverse form of closure. We are both architects of our ruin, entwined in a dance of destruction that has led us here. A confrontation arises, as inevitable as the setting sun, with an inmate who sees my infamy as a threat to her own standing. The fight is brutal, a physical manifestation of the internal battles I've faced since my world crumbled. She embodies the mistakes of my past, each punch thrown a reminder of what I've become. The aftermath is grim. I'm left severely injured, a stark symbol of the consequences of my actions. My body heals, but the scars run deeper, etched into the fabric of my being. There's no hope for redemption, no future beyond these walls that doesn't carry the weight of my past. As the story draws to a close, I'm left to reflect on the legacy of my choices. My actions have not only decimated my life but have left a lasting scar on those I once held dear. The realization is a burden heavier than any sentence the court could impose. My name, once spoken with love and respect, now serves as a warning, a legacy of infamy that will outlive my time behind these bars. In the silence of my cell, I confront the truth of my existence. The journey that led me here is marked by betrayal, greed, and a relentless pursuit of a happiness that was always just out of reach. As the final chapter of my story unfolds, I understand that the greatest prison is not the one built of concrete and steel, but the one I constructed for myself, brick by brick, with every choice